She confessed to sleeping with someone I knew. Then I showed her the wedding photo. She said, "You were there." The night, she whispered. "It was a mistake. I thought she meant us." I always thought I'd know when something was wrong. I figured if my wife ever started pulling away, I'd feel it like a cold front pushing in. But when it actually happened, it didn't hit me like a storm. It crept in like fog, quiet, slow, and hard to point at. Leah and I had been married 6 years. We had our patterns: morning coffee together, Trader Joe's runs on Sunday, a glass of wine, and half a streaming series before bed. It wasn't thrilling, but it was stable, predictable, and I thought we liked it that way. We met through my best friend, Noah, back when she was still working PR for a boutique firm downtown. I was the quiet one, the logistics guy, the type who tracks weather patterns for fun and organizes pantry shelves by expiration date. She was all spark and storyboards, bright lipstick and bigger ideas. We balanced each other out, or so I believed. I'm not dramatic. I'm not insecure. But lately, I'd been noticing things I couldn't unsee, like how she changed the password on her phone after a weird phishing attempt, or how she took her phone to the bathroom every time. She used to leave it on the counter. Now, it was like it had become a second limb. She started going on wellness weekends. First it was a Saturday massage, then full weekends away at Airbnbs, just to journal and reset. I encouraged it at first. I even packed her travel bags a couple times. I didn't want to be the guy who questioned everything. But I'd be lying if I said the pit in my stomach wasn't growing. She'd come back from those weekends smelling faintly of cologne. Not mine. Not her perfume either. Something else. Something warmer, she'd say. The Airbnb had those woodsy candles, you know? Fig and cedar or whatever. I pretended to nod, even though I knew fig didn't smell like that. The weirdest moment came one Friday night when we were supposed to watch a movie. She was distracted, laughing at her phone while trying to hide the screen with her palm. I leaned over and teased, "What's so funny?" I could use a laugh. She looked up, too quick, too defensive, and said, "Just a group chat thing. Dumb work memes." Then she locked the screen before I could glimpse anything. And that's when I saw the notification banner. A text from Noah. Just his name. No message preview. But it was enough to lodge something in my brain like a splinter. Noah had been my best friend since college. He introduced me to Leah. He was at our wedding. He gave the best man speech and cried through half of it. He always joked that he was jealous of how well we fit. But I hadn't seen him much lately. Not in person. Not since he moved across town and got too busy. I couldn't explain it, but I started seeing Noah's name in places it didn't belong. In Leah's stories. In the background of Instagram photos that didn't include him, but felt like they should. She mentioned him in passing more than she used to. Noah said this podcast was hilarious. Noah's wife apparently started a garden. Always casual. Always tossed in like seasoning. One night I asked if she wanted to have dinner with Noah and his wife. She paused mid-sip of wine and said, "We should, yeah? It's been forever." But then she changed the subject before I could say another word. We never scheduled it. I told myself I was being weird. That married people drift sometimes. That it didn't have to mean anything. But then I started waking up in the middle of the night, heart racing, with the horrible certainty that I was losing something without knowing what it was. Not loudly. Not in a blaze. Just piece by piece. A marriage doesn't collapse like a building. It peels apart like old wallpaper. There was a moment, maybe a week later, when I caught her staring at herself in the mirror. Just staring. Not fixing her hair. Not doing makeup. Just looking. She didn't know I was behind her in the hallway. I heard her sigh, soft and shaky, like she was mourning something invisible. I wanted to walk up behind her, wrap my arms around her waist, ask her what was wrong and promise I'd fix it. But something told me not to. Something told me to wait. That was the night I stopped making excuses. That was the night I started watching. And what I was about to find would change everything. She left that weekend like she always did. Kisses on the cheek, yoga bag in one hand, phone already up to her ear. She told me she was heading upstate for 2 days of absolute silence. Something about a digital detox. I smiled and told her to have fun. Watched her car disappear around the bend like I always did. Then I went back inside and locked the door behind me. But this time, I didn't spend the weekend folding laundry or catching up on work. I had a plan. I wasn't trying to catch her in some dramatic act. I just needed the truth. And the truth, I figured, wouldn't scream. It would whisper. So I started with the closets. Not her nightstand, not her phone. She was too careful for that. Leah curated her life like a mood board. Her phone would be sanitized, her planner spotless. But the closet? That was a different story. That's where we put the boxes we never open. The things we promise we'll deal with eventually. I dug through the usual crap. Old scarves, receipts, a bag of mismatched chargers from phones we no longer owned. And then I found it. Tucked behind a stack of old shoeboxes and winter coats. A plain white photo box, the kind you'd get from a craft store. It was labeled in her handwriting. Junk/do not open. Right. I carried it to the kitchen table, sat down, and opened the lid. Inside were loose Polaroids, movie ticket stubs, old photo strips from vintage booths. A couple letters, folded neatly. A pressed flower, crumbling between wax paper. I started sifting through it, carefully, like I was defusing something wired to blow. Most of it was harmless. Leah in college. Friends I didn't recognize. Some guy she clearly dated before me. Tall, scruffy, lots of smiles. I hated how much happier she looked in those photos. And then I saw it. A Polaroid with a black border, slightly curled at the edges. It looked older than the rest. Leah was in a wedding dress. Simple. Elegant. The hem grazed her ankles. Her hair was down, loose, no veil. She was standing under a wooden arch wrapped in eucalyptus branches, smiling. The man standing next to her had his face scratched out. Not scribbled over. Not slashed in anger. Scratched. With something sharp. Over and over. Deliberate. Surgical. And behind them, in the background, blurred but unmistakable, was me, holding a beer, laughing. Like I was at a party I didn't even know I was invited to. My hand started shaking. I dropped the photo and it fluttered to the table like a leaf. I picked it up again, slower this time. Examined every inch. The trees in the background weren't familiar. The chairs looked rented. There was no officiant. No crowd. Just them. Her in white. Him in gray. And me. Smiling, stupid, unaware. It made no sense. We had a courthouse wedding. Small. Simple. That was her idea. No fuss, no dress, no big day. We always joked about how overrated wedding culture was. Why waste money on a party when we could spend it on a honeymoon? She'd said. So what the hell was this? I flipped it over. One line, written in the same handwriting that labeled the box. For us. No one else. My pulse was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I dug deeper. Found a small velvet envelope tucked into the corner of the box. Inside was a folded note on thick stationery. No date. No signature. Just 2 lines. We were right to do it this way. You're the only one I've ever truly belonged to. No name. No initials. I sat there for a long time, staring at that photo. Trying to remember the moment it was taken. Trying to remember her in that dress. Trying to understand what the hell I had been a part of. I knew I needed answers, but I also knew that asking too soon would shut the door. So I slipped the photo back into the box, replaced everything exactly as I found it, and returned it to the closet. I closed the door, sat on the floor in the hallway, and tried to slow my breathing. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed, her side still warm from the morning, and stared at the ceiling. Because now I wasn't just wondering if she was hiding something. Now I was wondering how long she had been building a second life, and how deep I'd been buried in it without even knowing. I didn't bring it up right away. I couldn't. If I rushed it, she'd feel cornered, and Leah didn't respond well to corners. She'd spin it, deflect, cry if she had to. She was good at that, making guilt look like grief. So I waited. The night she came back from her silent weekend, she looked lighter. Her hair was damp. Her cheeks were flushed like she'd been kissed by wind. Or maybe something else. I stood at the stove stirring pasta sauce while she dropped her bags in the hallway and called out, "Smells amazing. You're spoiling me again." I turned just enough to catch her smile. It was automatic. Too automatic. The kind of smile you practice in mirrors before using it in public. We ate dinner like nothing was wrong. She told me about the tiny cabin with no Wi-Fi, and how she reconnected with her breath. I asked if it was peaceful. She said it was. Then asked how my weekend had been. I said, productive. She didn't ask for details. After dishes, I poured 2 glasses of wine and lit a candle. We sat on the couch. Music low. My pulse higher than it should have been. She leaned into my shoulder. "This is nice," she said softly. I didn't respond right away. Just let the silence stretch between us like a held breath. Then I said, "Hey, weird question." She looked up. I kept my voice casual. "Do you remember that wedding we went to a few years ago? Outdoors, small crowd. Trees wrapped in white lights. You wore your hair down." I watched her face closely. Too closely. Because I saw it. The half-second flicker in her eyes. The catch in her throat before she sipped her wine. "That's specific," she said. "Whose wedding was that?" I shrugged. "That's what I can't remember. I found a photo of it the other day. We looked happy." She nodded slowly. "Huh. Must have been one of Noah's cousins? You know how many backyard weddings he dragged us to." I waited a beat. "Yeah. Thing is, I don't remember being invited." She froze. Just for a moment. Then she forced a small laugh. "Maybe you crashed it and forgot." "Maybe I did," I said. Then I pulled the photo from my back pocket. I had printed a copy, folded once, clean and sharp. I handed it to her. She stared at it. And she didn't pretend not to recognize it. She just held it in her lap, fingers trembling slightly at the corners. "I wasn't supposed to keep that," she said quietly. I almost threw it out. "Why didn't you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me then, and her expression wasn't guilt. It was nostalgia. "I don't know," she said. "Because it was real, I guess." I felt my chest tighten. "You said we didn't want a big wedding." "We didn't," she replied. "Not you and me." I leaned forward. "Then who's in this photo with you, Leah?" She closed her eyes. "You already know." I said nothing. She set her wine down, ran a hand through her hair. Then she finally said the words, "Noah. My best friend. The man who introduced us. The man who toasted our anniversary 3 years ago. The man who told me, just last fall, you two were meant for each other." She kept talking. "Said it wasn't a legal wedding. Just something they did before he moved out of state for a while. Some private vow exchange. Symbolic. She called it. Intimate. He was the first person who ever really saw me," she whispered. "It was stupid. We were young. But I needed to say goodbye in a way that felt sacred." "And the dress?" I asked. She nodded. "Borrowed. It wasn't even white. It just looks that way in the photo." I stared at her. "And me? Why am I there?" She smiled again. "God," she smiled. "You were always close with him. You came as a plus one. We didn't know each other back then." "Not really. But you kept the photo," I said. "You scratched out his face. And you labeled it for us. No one else." Her voice was so soft I barely heard it, because I didn't know I'd still miss him. Silence, heavy, pressed into my lungs like wet cement. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, washed my hands just to do something with them. She followed, slower. "I love you," she said, like that could fix anything. That was another life. This is real." I looked at her. I mean really looked. And for the first time, I saw it. The distance wasn't new. It had always been there. I just hadn't noticed the gap until I stepped into it. I nodded once. "Okay." She blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I understand." And in a way, I did. She had made her choice long before I ever had the chance to. She just hadn't expected me to make mine so quietly. The next morning, I made her coffee like always. Oat milk, cinnamon, a little bit of honey, the way she liked it. She came into the kitchen wearing the old gray robe I bought her 3 Christmases ago. She looked tired, hair messy, voice low. I asked if she slept well. She said, "Not really." I told her I did. It was the first real lie I told her. We didn't talk about the photo. We didn't talk about Noah. We didn't talk about the scratched-out face or the private wedding or what it meant that I'd been standing in the background like some idiot playing extra in a scene I never auditioned for. She didn't bring it up, and neither did I. That became our rhythm, pretending the truth had come out clean, like a splinter. But I knew better. This wasn't clean. This wasn't over. This was the beginning. I didn't leave. That would have been too easy for her. Walk out, break down, say I overreacted. She would have cried to her sister, posted some half-cryptic blog entry about fractured timelines and impossible expectations, maybe even gotten a few sympathetic DMs from strangers who didn't know anything. No. If she wanted closure, she'd have to crawl through fire to find it. So I stayed. I kissed her cheek. I folded laundry. I asked how her meetings went. But inside, something was already splitting. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her shadow. Watching, listening, waiting. That same week, while she was in the shower, I cloned her phone. It wasn't hard. She used her laptop to back up everything to the cloud. I just synced a mirror account to my device. Messages, notes, call logs, voice memos. Every photo, every text, every calendar reminder. I saw it all. And God, there was more. More than I'd imagined. Messages to Noah, current ones, flirty, inside jokes I'd never heard. Mentions of missing him. Her name in his phone was saved as Starling, like some poetic little secret they shared. A nickname I had never once heard in 6 years of marriage. There were photos too. A mirror selfie from a hotel bathroom. A text that said, "Next time, I don't want to leave your bed." Another one. "Still thinking about your hands," he replied with a voice note. I didn't play it. I couldn't. They hadn't stopped. Not after our wedding. Not even recently. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me, she had kept this alive like a second heart beating just beneath her ribs. I should have confronted her right then. I should have thrown her phone in her face, screamed until my throat bled. But I didn't. Because I was building something. I created a folder. A quiet one. No password labels. No fancy name. Just a private Google Drive titled The Real Husband Files. Inside I made subfolders. Texts, photos, audio, screenshots, her words, lines from her journals, old letters, even Instagram captions that hit differently now. I documented everything. Dated it, cross-referenced it, matched her yoga retreats to hotel confirmations, pulled location pings from Google Maps history. Every lie had a receipt. I wasn't angry when I built it. I wasn't sobbing or shaking. I was calm, cold, focused. Because this wasn't going to be some screaming match in a parking lot. This wasn't going to be a dramatic Facebook post or a whiskey-fueled rant at a bar. This was going to be silent warfare. She'd wake up one day and find her entire image cracked, not from a single punch, but from 1,000 pressure points applied just right. At night she still curled into me, still rested her head on my chest, still told me she loved me, and I held her, steady and warm. But inside, I was miles away. One night she rolled over and whispered, "I'm glad we're okay." I kissed her temple. Me too. Another lie. Another brick in the wall I was building. Because the truth wasn't going to save us, but it was going to bury her. The first person I sent it to was her therapist. Not out of spite. Not because I wanted to twist the knife, but because I needed someone close to her, someone she trusted, to look her in the eye and realize they didn't know a damn thing. I waited until she left for work. She kissed me goodbye, same as always, like she wasn't standing in quicksand. I sat at the kitchen table, opened the drive, copied the link, and wrote one sentence in an anonymous email. "She's been lying to you, too." Then I sent it to the practice's contact inbox, addressed, "Attention, Dr. Madeline Harper." I didn't sign it. I didn't follow up. And I never had to. Because 3 days later, Leah came home looking like she'd been hit by a truck made of silence. She was pale, quiet, moving through the house like someone trying not to disturb ghosts. At dinner, she barely touched her food. I asked if she was okay. She nodded too quickly. Said she was just tired. That was the first crack. She didn't know who sent the file. She didn't even know what they'd seen. But that's what made it perfect. Uncertainty. Not a confrontation. Not a fight. Just a quiet suggestion that someone knew, and that she'd never know who else might. That night, I sat on the couch and watched her pace the hallway like something might jump out from the dark. Her phone was glued to her hand, but she wasn't texting. Just staring at it like it might reveal the answer if she held still long enough. The next morning, I picked my next target. Her boss. Same process. New message. "This is the woman representing your brand." I included a screenshot from the, her words, folder, a text she sent Noah during a pitch meeting last month. It read, "Half listening. All yours." Her company sold itself on values, integrity, female leadership, clean messaging. I figured that was worth about 2 meetings, 1 HR report, and a very awkward silence in the break room. I kept the pace slow, strategic. After her boss, I chose her parents. Not because I thought they'd tear her apart, but because I knew how much their approval meant to her. She once cried for 2 hours when her mother called her, reckless, for quitting her old job too fast. This time, I didn't just send the file. I printed a letter. Included a photo of her and Noah from the private. ceremony. With her in the white dress and him holding both her hands like she was a lifeline. I added a note. She never stopped loving him, she just lied better. I used gloves when I mailed it. No return address. Just clean, white envelope, black ink, elegant print. She wouldn't be able to trace it even if she tried. Then came her best friend, Claire. And after that? Noah's wife. Each one got a slightly different version, slightly different folders, a different photo, a different quote, a different angle. By the time Leah started to feel the walls closing in, she couldn't tell where it started. And that was the point. I still slept beside her, still kissed her goodnight, still packed her lunch. She didn't ask about the photo anymore. Didn't ask about Noah. I think she thought the storm had passed. She didn't know the clouds were still gathering. The day she finally broke, I didn't see it coming, not exactly. She walked into the living room holding her phone like it had just betrayed her. I need to ask you something, she said, voice flat. I muted the TV. What's up? Did you send something to my boss? I blinked. What would I send to your boss? She didn't answer. Just stared at me. Searching. Measuring. Like she was trying to read something between my pupils. She started pacing. Whispered to herself. Then turned back to me. Claire said someone emailed her. Screenshots. Messages. From me. I kept my face still. From you? She nodded. From my phone. From my cloud. Stuff I never shared. My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat. I just looked at her like I didn't already know every single line she was about to deliver. She sat down hard on the armrest, hands shaking. Someone has everything, she whispered. Everything. She looked at me then, eyes wide, terrified. Was it you? I didn't answer right away. I let the question hang. Then I shook my head, slowly. I would never hurt you like that, I said. It wasn't technically a lie, because I hadn't hurt her. I'd just shown the world what she really was. I never raised my voice. Never touched her phone. Never stopped smiling when she looked at me. That was the hardest part, keeping the performance airtight. But I'd rehearsed it in my head 100 different ways, and it paid off, because she unraveled all on her own. It started with the silence, the kind that follows you, the kind that hangs in the space between texts that never come and calls that don't get returned. She was checking her phone constantly now, refreshing inboxes like she was expecting bad news to arrive in waves. She didn't tell me about it, but I saw it in the way she moved, jittery, on edge, like every sound might be a fuse about to blow. Then came the talk with her boss. She came home late one night, still in her blazer, makeup faded, heels in her hand. I asked if she wanted dinner. She said she wasn't hungry, then stood in the middle of the kitchen like she forgot where she lived. They asked if I'd sent personal messages on the company account, she finally said. I played dumb. Did you? Her laugh was brittle. Of course not. But someone has access to my private backups. They showed me a screenshot. I turned back to the sink, pretending to scrub a dish. Weird. She didn't reply. 2 days later, she skipped work entirely. Told me she was burned out. Said she needed to unplug. She stayed in bed until noon, then sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, just staring at her inbox. That afternoon, she got a call from her mother. I only caught pieces of the conversation, but I didn't have to hear the whole thing to know what it was about. I didn't lie. No, I didn't tell you because… Don't talk to me like I'm some kind of… Okay, fine. Believe whatever you want. Then she hung up, threw the phone across the room. It bounced off the couch and clattered to the floor. She looked at me, eyes red, breathing shallow. She thinks I cheated on you. I raised an eyebrow. Did you tell her the truth? Her jaw clenched. She didn't answer. I walked over, picked up the phone, set it gently on the table. Must be hard, having people question your character. She looked like she wanted to slap me, or cry, or maybe both. That night, she didn't come to bed. I found her asleep on the couch, curled in a ball, face smudged with mascara. The next morning, she had 2 new voicemails, one from her mentor, the woman who helped get her hired at her agency, and one from Claire. She played both on speaker without realizing I was in the hallway. Claire's voice was tight, clipped. I don't know what's true anymore, Leah. But you should have told me. Instead, I had to read it from some anonymous drive. You made me look like a fool. Her mentor was calmer, but the words cut just as deep. I vouched for you. I stood in rooms and said you were the real thing. And now I'm seeing… What? Vows to another man? Secret affairs? I don't even know who I defended. Leah sat there, mouth open, phone still in her hand. Then she whispered, "What is happening to me?" And I almost laughed, because finally, she was asking the right question. That evening, I sent the final version of the file to Noah's wife. I waited until Leah was asleep. I attached a note that simply said, "He never stopped. Neither did she." Within 48 hours, Noah's wife posted a black square on Instagram with a quote about betrayal and loyalty. The comments were turned off. Her bio changed to a single word: rebuilding. Leah didn't say anything, but I could feel the tension ripple through her. The way she sat at the table, unmoving, staring at nothing. The way she looked at her phone like it was radioactive. One night she finally broke. She stood at the foot of our bed and asked, "Do you hate me?" I looked up from my book, calm, careful. "No," I said. "I don't hate you." She took a step closer. "Then what is this?" "What's what?" "This. Us. You're acting like nothing's wrong." I closed the book, set it on the nightstand. "I'm just trying to move forward." "With me?" she asked. "With or without," I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I didn't say anything else, just pulled the blanket over my chest and turned off the lamp. The darkness settled between us like a wall. She didn't ask again, but I knew she could feel it. The clock ticking, the tension tightening, the air getting harder to breathe. Because when you lie for long enough, the truth doesn't just hurt. It haunts. She stopped sleeping in our bed 2 weeks before I left. No argument. No slammed doors, just slow retreat. She said the couch was better for her back. Said she needed space to process. But I knew it wasn't her back. It was her guilt pressing down like weight she couldn't carry in the dark. I didn't argue. I didn't chase her. I let her drift. Because I wasn't trying to win her back. I was preparing to leave without warning, the same way she'd been leaving me in pieces for years. The morning I left, I made coffee like always. Oat milk, cinnamon, a little honey. I left her cup on the counter, steam curling into the quiet. She didn't hear me packing. The night before, while she was asleep on the couch, I pulled everything I cared about into a single duffel. Laptop, passport, the watch my father left me, a few photos she never touched. I didn't take anything else, not the furniture, not the plates, not the wedding album. I left the house like a man escaping a fire he didn't start but refused to let consume him. I didn't leave a note. I didn't block her. I just disappeared. I checked into a short-term rental on the other side of town. Small space. White walls. No shared memories. No shadows wearing her face. It was silent, but not empty. For the first time in months, my thoughts didn't echo against denial. She texted that night. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. She called. I let it ring. Then came the voice messages. "Please, I just need to talk to you. I don't know what's happening. Everyone's turning on me. You think you know the whole story, but you don't. You don't get to erase me like this." That last one? That made me laugh. Because that's exactly what she had done to me. Bit by bit. Smile by smile. Until I was just a safe option in her story. A background extra in the life she really wanted with someone else. So I didn't respond. I didn't owe her clarity. I owed myself peace. The only thing I did do was share one final link. I posted a Medium article under my real name. No aliases. No theatrics. Just a quiet headline. "When you find out you were the second choice." I wrote it clean. No insults. No exaggeration. Just facts. I told the story exactly as it unfolded. The private wedding photo. The secret affair with Noah. The years of betrayal disguised as emotional distance. The days she admitted she never really let him go. I included screenshots, dates, quotes. I ended it with a paragraph that I read over 10 times before hitting publish. "There are people who will hurt you and still ask why you're not okay. People who say they love you while carving pieces out of your soul. I'm not telling this story for sympathy. I'm telling it because silence shields the wrong ones. And I've been silent long enough." It didn't go viral. But it didn't need to. Because it reached the only people that mattered. I got 3 messages that week. One from a stranger who said, "I thought I was alone." One from an old college friend who hadn't spoken to me in years, just saying, "I see you now." And one from Noah's wife. All it said was, "Thank you for not letting him keep hiding." I moved apartments 2 weeks later. New lease. New space. No ghosts. Leah never showed up at the door. But she did send one last text. You got what you wanted. Hope it was worth it. I read it twice, then I archived it. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because silence now was mine. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you take back with both hands, brick by brick, lie by lie. And when you finally have it, you don't owe them a damn thing.